All right, so you just read about a couple of things here. One, how do we do some calculations based off of a single column in a data frame? And then also, how do we add and remove columns? These kind of go hand in hand. And to illustrate, let's go ahead and pull in the Ames data. You see that we are modifying the columns so that we have a little bit more consistency in the naming. And in the reading, you saw that we can go ahead, we could take a single column of interest, such as sale price. I believe that's the correct name. Yep. And we can do any type of mathematical operation on this, right? So let's say we wanted to take sale price and divide that by 1,000, right? So now our sale price would be represented in 1,000s. Same thing, we could go ahead, we could say, look, if we're gonna add on 500 for every home, or actually even better, let's go ahead and say we wanted to say, all right, let's assume every home in here was sold by a realtor and each realtor collected 3%. So what would be the commission for all these homes? And you can see we can do that. And nice part about this is we could actually say, hey, look, what's the total sum of 3% of all these homes, right? Or all the sale price. So we can see the total value here, right? So we can do any of these mathematical operations. The issue is we're just creating a series as an output, right? So most of the time we want to go ahead and add some type of column based off of a calculation back to our data frame, right? So I could go ahead and I could say, hey, look, Ames, and let's create a new column that's called sales commission. And this is going to be equivalent to the sale price times 3%, right? And so now, I need to finish my quote here. Now when we do that, we can go ahead and take a look at Ames head. And if we scroll all the way to the end, we see we have our sales commission for each home, which is 3% of the total sales price. Right, so just remember that anytime you add a new column in this manner, it's always going to add that column to the end. All right, so that's great. Now sometimes we may actually want to remove a column. All right, so let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Well, there is a drop function, and drop can actually be used to drop observations of interest, or it can be used to drop columns. We could actually say I want to drop the 0, so that would be row index 0, 2, and 4. And the default here, the default approach is to drop the rows of interest, right? So we see we lost the row at index value 0, 2, and 4, okay? Now when we're dropping columns, we need to go ahead and specify columns, and then we can specify the one column of interest. Say we want to drop just that sales commission, so I can go ahead and say sales commission. And if I look at the output here, we no longer have that. I could even go ahead and drop multiple columns. I could say I want to drop sales commission and also, let's say, the sale price. And so if we want to drop multiple columns, we just pass a list with the multiple column names of interest that we want to drop. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and let's use this knowledge to go ahead and complete this knowledge check. So the first thing is create a new column utility space that is 1/5 of the above ground living space. All right, so let's go ahead and look at Ames GR live area. So this is the above ground living space. And let's say 1/5 of this, 1/5 is reserved for utility space. So we could see that for each home, the value of this 1/5 times ground living area, we get this in a series. So we can go ahead, take that result, and I'm going to create a new column called utility space. And I'm going to assign to that value this calculation that I just did. Now here number 2, it says you will get a fractional output with step number 1. See if you can figure out how to round this output to the nearest integer. All right, so let's go ahead. Before I do this, let's see, is there a way to go ahead and round? And there is. So I can just use the round function, and that's going to round to the whole value. So now we have a whole value representing our utility space square footage. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that to our data frame. If I look at my data frame now, let me just look at the head. I see that at the end I've got utility space, and I've got a rounded number that represents 1/5 of the sale price here. Now if I wanted to go ahead and drop this new column eventually down the road, I decide I don't want it, I can go ahead and do drop, and I gotta say columns equals utility space. Do that, and I see that my output no longer has that. Now, in this case, I'm dropping it, but I'm not actually overriding the original aim, so I need to save aims equals and do aims.head. And the result has no utility space at the end there.